Don't ever show your face again. You're dead to us, my mom yelled after I refused to pay $95,000 for my brother's latest scam. I replied, understood. Then I hung up. Within hours, the frantic calls started. Hey Reddit, I'm Marco, 30 me. And for the last 8 years, I've basically been a walking chase bank for 3 fully grown adults. Well, not anymore. Grab your popcorn because this train wreck is wild, and it kept backfiring on them in the most beautiful ways. So, this all started when I was 22. I had just finished a cybersecurity bootcamp and landed my first real job, making $58,000 a year. My parents were thrilled. They even threw a dinner to celebrate, telling me how proud they were. But before we even got to dessert, my mom was already dropping hints about my brother's rent situation. Dylan had just been unfairly fired from his 3rd job that year, except it wasn't unfair at all. He was showing up high and stealing from the register. Dylan's 27 now, and I'm pretty sure he's never held a job for more than 4 months. He's one of those regular jobs are a scam guys, constantly talking about how he's meant for bigger things. You know the type, temporarily embarrassed millionaire energy. Meanwhile, he's been living rent-free in a condo with our parents since 2019, and I've been paying for it. Then there's my parents, Carol and Dennis. My mom used to run a dental office until, at 51, she decided she was burned out and just quit. No retirement savings, no backup plan. Just vibes. My dad worked in insurance sales and took early retirement at 54 because he wanted to enjoy life while he's still young. Both of them are completely healthy, completely capable of working, and completely fine with letting me bankroll their early retirement lifestyle. Yeah, I know how this sounds. And yes, I was stupid. Now I make $115,000 a year working as a senior security analyst. Should be great money, right? Except I've been living in the same tiny 600 square foot apartment for 5 years because every extra dollar I make goes toward keeping them comfortable. Let me break down what I was paying every month. As of late 2024, condo lease in Phoenix, $2,800 in my name. Utilities. $200 dad's car insurance, $180 family phone plan, $240. And then there's the joint credit card I opened, stupidly, 5 years ago. My mom treats it like free money. She racks up around $2,000 a month. DoorDash 3 times a week. Lululemon shopping sprees, premium cable, my brother's vape supplies, whatever gaming subscriptions he's into. You name it. Then there's Dylan's entrepreneurial journey, which is just code for expensive failures. First, it was day trading. He needed $8,000 for some course taught by a YouTube guru who always has a Lambo in the thumbnail. He lost everything in 3 months trading penny stocks while high. Then it was crypto. Then NFTs. In total, over the last 8 years, I've given them close to $342,000. Not loaned, given. As in, it's gone. Here's the breakdown. Dylan's failed business ventures, $67,000. Their condo, since late 2019, 5 years x 2,800 MO, plus $5,600 for deposit and first month $573,600 credit card debt. I directly paid off, not including the monthly charges. Once they maxed it out, begged me to pay it off, then immediately maxed it again, other expenses, car insurance, phone bills, utilities, streaming, emergency cash, medical bills, car repairs, etc. $60,400. My role in the family was established early. I was the responsible one. The family group chat was just a constant stream of everyone else living their best life. Dylan posting about his latest business idea. My mom sending photos from restaurants, I'd send money. Get back a few texts, maybe in bytes if I was lucky. My buddy Alan at work, ex-Marine, doesn't sugarcoat anything, has been telling me for 3 years to cut them off. He'd see me eating ramen at my desk for the 4th day in a row while my family posted brunch photos on Instagram. And he'd just shake his head. Once he told me, "You're bleeding out while asking them if they need a tourniquet." I kept making excuses. They're family. They're struggling. I'm doing fine, except I wasn't doing fine. I had maybe $2,800 in checking, $3,200 in savings, total liquid assets $6,000. I drove a 2006 Honda Accord with 180,000 miles on it, but I kept telling myself, it's temporary. Then, 3 months ago, I started noticing Dylan getting real active in the family group chat. Lots of screenshots about this crypto trading mentorship program, Success stories of people making six figures in a few months. Photos of Lambos and stacks of cash everywhere. He was clearly building up to something. I knew what was coming. The whole, "this time it's different" speech. I just didn't realize it would be the moment I finally woke up and realized I've been a doormat for 8 years. It was a Wednesday night. Around 9 p.m., I was finishing up some security audits. From home on my third energy drink, when the family group chat blew up, Dylan dropped this massive message, filled with 100 fire emojis and rocket ships, making a big announcement. He'd just been accepted into the Crypto Kings Elite Mastermind, or whatever it was called. Apparently, this was the real deal, a proven system with a 97% success rate. The founder of this program, supposedly, turned $5,000 into $8 million in just 18 months. Registration was closing on Monday, and Mom and Dad were already helping Dylan pack for the bootcamp in Miami. Mom instantly responded in the group chat, saying how proud she was of him. Dad chimed in too, said Dylan had finally found his calling. I'm just sitting there staring at my phone. Miami bootcamp? None of this sounds free, so I asked how much the program costs. Dylan replies that it's a $95,000 investment, but before I freak out, he says, it includes housing for the 6-week intensive, direct mentorship with actual millionaires, access to their private trading algorithms, and lifetime support. Apparently, people were making their money back in the first month, $95,000. I took a breath and told him, that's a lot of money, and I don't think I can swing that. The group chat went completely silent, like 2 full minutes of nothing. Then my phone starts ringing. It's Mom. I could already tell from her voice that she'd decided. I was wrong before I even said anything. She couldn't believe I was saying I didn't have the money when I make over $100,000 a year. I tried to explain. I'm already paying their rent, their utilities, Dad's car insurance, their phone bills, the credit card they max out every month. I literally have nothing left. She made it sound like I'd just told her I ran over her dog. She said Dylan's been struggling for years to find his path. And this was finally it. This was his chance. And I was going to ruin it because I was being selfish with money. Selfish, because apparently funding 8 years of failure wasn't enough. I told her straight up, I don't have $95,000. I'd have to take out loans. Then she says, then take out the loans. This is your brother. This is family. She launched into this long speech about sacrifice and how much they sacrifice for me growing up. I almost laughed. I've given them over $300,000 in the last 8 years. She said that was disrespectful, that they never asked me to do that, which is complete BS. They asked every single month for 8 straight years. Then my dad gets on the phone, doing his whole reasonable dad act. Marco, you should think about Dylan's perspective. He's been working so hard to find his thing. This could change our life. Our life? Dad, your son has never worked hard a day in his life. Every single venture I've funded has crashed and burned. I've lost over $60,000 just on Dylan's ideas alone. What perspective are you talking about? Then he hits me with, it's okay. You fail until you succeed. That's how it works. No, not on my dime. I'm sorry, I heard them arguing in the background. Then Mom grabbed the phone back and her voice went ice cold. You know what, Marco? Fine, be selfish. But don't come crying to us when you're old and alone because you chose money over family. We're done. You're dead to us. Don't show your face at this house again. Then she hung up. I sat there holding my phone, my heart pounding, dead to them, because I wouldn't hand over $95,000. The group chat exploded after that. Dylan sent this whole essay about how disappointed he was in me, how I'd always been jealous of him, how I never supported his dreams. My mom said I was tearing the family apart. My dad called me short-sighted and immature. Then Dylan took his final shot. Hope you enjoy your lonely-ass life, bro. When I'm a millionaire, don't come asking me for I looked around my apartment, my shitty couch, my old laptop, the one I'd been meaning to replace for 2 years but couldn't afford to, because they always needed something first. I'd literally prioritized their comfort over my own for nearly a decade, and now they were calling me selfish, telling me I was dead to them. I sat in silence for a moment, then said to myself, all right then, let's see how that works out. And I hung up. I didn't sleep that night. Not gonna lie, it stung bad. but it was a good sting. Because now I was going to show them what dead to us really looks like. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up 8 years of receipts. I started a fresh spreadsheet titled Financial Documentation, and I went to work. Every number I had, every Venmo, every rent payment, every credit card statement. By 4 a.m., I had the whole thing laid out. $342,000 over 8 years. I made charts, graphs, a whole visual breakdown of how I'd basically set my entire 20s on fire to keep them comfortable. Then, I did something I should have done years ago. Googled financial abuse family, and spent the next 2 hours just reading terms. Out there's a whole term for what they'd been doing. Financial exploitation, using guilt and manipulation to extract money from someone. The signs were all there. Never asking how I'm doing financially, only what I can give. Promises to pay me back that just vanish, requests that keep escalating, and threats when I finally say no. Every single article could have been written about my family. Alan was right. I'd been bleeding out, while asking them if they needed more blood. At 7 a.m., I texted Alan, "Remember when you told me to cut them off?" He replied in 30 seconds, "What's the play?" Scorched earth. When the property management office opened at 8 a.m., I called and gave 30 days notice on the condo. Yeah, there was a penalty for breaking the lease early. 2 months rent, $5,600, but I'd already paid $173,600 to house them. Another $5,600 to stop? Felt like nothing. Next up, the credit card. It was a joint account. My credit, their charges. I called and closed it immediately. Paid off the $3,040 balance right then and there. Car insurance? I removed my payment method. They'd need to add their own, or it would lapse in 7 days. Phone plan, family plan with 4 lines. I removed 3. Their phones would stop working unless they got their own service. I went through every single subscription, every shared account, canceled, even the joint checking account I had with my mom, closed. I transferred the remaining $2,100 to my personal account and went straight to the bank to close the joint one. By noon it was done. Every financial tie, cut clean, and the feeling, man, it was like I could finally breathe for the first time in 8 years. My phone was still silent. They didn't know yet. That was fine. They were about to find out. The first call came around 2 p.m. I was at work, walking a new hire through some security protocols when my phone started buzzing. Mom. I flipped it to silent and kept talking. Then it buzzed again. 7. More times in the next 10 minutes. Mom, Dad, Dylan, Mom, again. Then the texts started rolling in. Mom said the credit card wasn't working and demanded I fix it immediately. Dylan asked what the heck I did to his phone. Dad said Mom was upset and that I should please call back. I just watched the screen light up over and over, feeling a little entertained, not gonna lie. They were panicking. By 4 p.m., the tone of the messages shifted. Mom said property management had called about canceling the lease, demanded I call her right now because this wasn't funny. Dylan accused me of being petty over money. Dad said this had gone too far and that we needed to talk like adults. At 5:30, my coworker Alan passed by my desk and noticed my phone buzzing nonstop like it was having a seizure. I told him, "The family's realizing the gravy train just left the station." He laughed and said, "We should grab drinks." So we did. We clinked our glasses to boundaries and freedom. My phone was face down on the bar, vibrating like crazy. 34 missed calls, 67 texts. Alan just looked at me and said, "They big mad." I scrolled through some of them. Mom had gone full victim mode now, crying through text. She couldn't believe I was doing this to my own mother after everything they'd done for me. Apparently I was destroying the family. Dylan said Mom was crying because of me and called me a freaking a-hole. Dad said Mom was having a breakdown and that this had gone way too far. Then there was one from Aunt Pamela, asking what was going on. Apparently Mom had called her sobbing, saying I'd cut them off completely. So I texted Pamela back and said, "Ask Mom why I cut them off. Ask her how much money I've given them over 8 years. Ask what she said when I told her I couldn't afford $95,000. Then around 7 p.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, Phoenix area code. It was Officer John with Phoenix PD. He said he was following up on a welfare check request. My mother had called, saying she was worried about my well-being and wanted someone to check on me. I closed my eyes. Unbelievable. I told him no. I wasn't in any crisis. I was just having a drink with a friend. My mother had called in a welfare check because I stopped giving her money. He paused and asked if I was in danger or had any plans to harm myself. I told him, zero danger, zero plans. He asked what was going on with my mom, so I laid it all out. There was a long silence, and then he said, "Well, that's quite a situation. Sounds like you're making a healthy choice for yourself." He said he'd document that I was safe and let my mother know. Alan was staring at me, half shocked. "Did your mom just call the cops with a fake welfare check?" "Yeah," I said. He blinked. "Wow, your family is psychotic." Then things really escalated. At 8 p.m., the extended family group chat exploded. Mom sent a long message to everyone saying I'd had some kind of breakdown, cut off contact, canceled their housing, shut off their phones, and was refusing to get help. She said no one could reach me and they were all very worried. The extended family started chiming in, expressing concern. Then Aunt Pamela asked Mom if it was true that she told me I was dead to her when I said I couldn't. Give her money. The chat went completely silent. Then Mom replied that Pamela didn't understand the full situation, that I'd been acting strange lately. And they were just worried about me. That was it. I'd had enough. I opened the chat and typed one message. They asked for $95,000 for another one of Dylan's schemes. I said no because I've already given them $342,000 over 8 years and have basically nothing saved. Mom told me I was dead to them. So I took her at her word and stopped paying their bills. No breakdown, just boundaries. Then I attached the financial breakdown PDF, every transaction, every amount, 8 years of receipts, and hit send. Immediately left the group chat. My phone blew up again. Calls, texts, notifications nonstop. I started blocking numbers one by one. Mom, Dad, Dylan, then everyone else. Finally, silence. Alan asked, "So, what's next?" "You're finally free." "Yep," I said. "Finally. Now I'm going to focus on myself for once," he smiled. "Happy for you, dude. Took you long enough." When I got home that night, I opened my banking app, checking. $1,847, savings $3,200 total. $5,047, it wasn't much, but it was mine. And starting tomorrow, it would actually grow instead of just disappearing. Better late than never. I opened a new spreadsheet titled Financial Goals. Emergency fund by April. New laptop by February. Down payment savings by the end of 2026. For the first time in 8 years, I was planning my own future. That night, I slept better than I had in years. I woke up at 7 a.m., made coffee, and checked my phone. 17 new messages from unknown numbers. Blocked them all without even reading. I already knew what they were. At work, my boss Angela caught me in the hallway and asked if my mom had called the office yesterday. Turns out she had, called the main line, told reception she was my mother, and said she needed to talk to me urgently about my mental health. I apologized and told Angela I'd cut off contact with my family for personal reasons, and they weren't handling it well. She asked if I was okay, and for once, I could honestly say, I'm better than I've been in years. At lunch, my phone rang again. Another unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Aunt Pamela. She said she'd seen what I sent. Had no idea about any of it, but that Mom was now claiming I'd doctored those records and was having some kind of episode. I ignored it. At 3 p.m., building security called my desk. There was a Dylan Webb in the lobby asking for me. Said he was my brother. Tell him I can't see him. I'm in meetings, I said. They told him, but apparently he insisted. Security said if he didn't leave soon, they'd call the cops 5 minutes later. They called back. Dylan had finally left, but he told them to let me know. This isn't over. Alan overheard and looked right at me. That's a straight-up threat, he said. You need to start documenting all of this. He was right. When I got home around 6 p.m., I immediately knew something was wrong. My apartment door was slightly open. Not kicked in, just open. I froze, backed away, and called 911. The cops showed up about 12 minutes later. They cleared my apartment. Nothing was stolen, but someone had definitely been inside. Stuff was moved around. My laptop was open. Papers on my desk were scattered everywhere. The officer took a report and asked if I had any idea who would do this. I told him my brother had shown up at my job earlier, making threats. After I'd cut off financial support to my family, he nodded, said I should document everything, and consider filing for a restraining order. After they left, I called my landlord about changing the locks. He said he'd send someone first thing tomorrow. Then I called Alan, told him someone had broken into my place. Man, document everything and get a restraining order. Like yesterday, he said. You're right, I told him. I don't think they'll stop. They're desperate, and desperate people can do anything. At 9:00 p.m., while I was writing down notes about everything that had happened, my phone rang again. Unknown number, I answered, this time with my voice recorder app running. It was my dad. He said we needed to talk about this situation. Mom was devastated. Dylan was furious. This has gotten completely out of hand, he said. Just come to dinner this weekend and we'll sort everything out. I asked him, what exactly would we be sorting out? The part where I gave you $342,000 and Mom told me I was dead to her, or the part where Dylan broke into my apartment today? Silence. Then he asked what I meant about Dylan. I explained. My apartment had been broken into. The cops had come. I was documenting everything. Marco, you're being paranoid, he said. Dylan wouldn't. Dad, someone got into my apartment while I was at work. The same day Dylan showed up at my job making threats. Now you're calling from a number I don't even have. More silence. I told him this was harassment and illegal. If Dylan came near me or my home again, I'd press charges. Mom needed to stop calling my work, and they needed to delete this number. We're done, I said. Then I hung up and blocked the number. That night, I lay in bed, listening to every creak and sound in the building. I knew this was going to get worse before it got better, but I was done being their victim. After that, Mom actually showed up at my apartment building. The doorman didn't let her up, but she waited outside for an hour. That was it. Enough. I reached out to Peter, a lawyer Alan had recommended who specialized in family law. We met and I brought him everything. My entire financial breakdown, 8 years of bank statements, every text message where they'd asked for money, documentation of everything since I'd cut them off, the fake welfare check, Dylan showing up at my work, the break-in police report, the calls to my workplace, my dad calling from unknown numbers after I'd blocked them. Peter read through it all carefully. Then he looked up and said, "This is textbook financial exploitation. And what's happening now? Straight up harassment." He said we could file for restraining orders against all 3 of them. We filed the next day. I requested orders against my mom, Dad, and Dylan, detailing every single incident. 2 days later, the judge granted temporary restraining orders. They had to stay 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. They also couldn't contact me directly or indirectly. The cops served the papers to all 3 about a week after we filed. And I knew exactly when it happened, because my phone exploded again. 3 different unknown numbers. By 5 p.m., I had 28 missed calls and 56 text messages. When I got home, I went through the voicemails. Mom's voice was shaking with rage. She'd just been served a restraining order from her own son. According to her, I'd lost my mind. This was insane. She was my mother. I couldn't do this to her. She said she was calling a lawyer. Dylan's voicemail was next. What the heck, man? Why a restraining order? I just came to your work to talk like an adult and now I can't come within 500 feet of you? You're freaking psychotic. Then Dad's. His was calm, which somehow made it worse. He said he was very disappointed, that the restraining order was unnecessary and cruel, that they were my family and they deserved better than this. Right, I deleted all of them and forwarded the numbers to Peter so he'd have records showing. They'd already violated the temporary orders. The full hearing was scheduled for about 3 weeks later. Then, maybe a week after they got served, I got served at work. A process server handed me papers right there in the lobby. It was a lawsuit filed by Carol and Dennis Webb against Marco Webb. They were suing me for $150,000, claiming I had borrowed money from them over the years and was now refusing to pay it back. I actually laughed, sitting there in my car, reading it. They were claiming that all the money I had given them was actually money I owed them. Creative, I called Peter immediately. He told me to bring in the lawsuit and not to Worry, it was clearly retaliatory and frivolous. The restraining order hearing was scheduled. For a Tuesday morning in early February, their lawyer tried to argue that I was just retaliating over a family disagreement, that restraining orders were extreme, that if I didn't want contact, I could simply avoid them. Peter didn't even flinch. He laid out 8 years of evidence, every text, every transaction, every escalation. He showed the messages where they told me I was dead to them. He showed the police report from the break-in. He showed documentation of the fake welfare check. He showed the entire pattern, the harassment, the manipulation, the financial exploitation. The judge read everything quietly. Then she looked up, straight at my family. She granted the permanent restraining orders. No contact for 3 years. They had to stay 500 feet away from my home or workplace. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, but with a tone that cut deep, that their lawsuit looked retaliatory and they should think very hard about whether continuing it was a good idea. Beautiful Peter followed that up by filing a motion to dismiss the lawsuit as frivolous and retaliatory. About a month later, we had another hearing. We presented all the evidence, every transfer, every note, every time I'd clearly stated these were gifts, not loans. The judge dismissed their lawsuit with prejudice, meaning they couldn't refile. Then she hit them with $6,200 in sanctions, reimbursement for my legal fees. Mom cried when the ruling came down. Dad looked like he'd just been punched. Dylan just stared at the floor. Peter and I walked out of that courtroom, and I swear I could actually breathe again. It was over. Legally, it was over. 3 months after the restraining orders became final, I moved to a new apartment. Nicer building. 2 bedrooms. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Gym in the building. For $850 a month, worth every penny. I'd saved $18,000 since cutting them off. Actually had an emergency fund. Had investments. Had a life that was mine. Finally mine. Alan helped me move. We ordered food and played PlayStation in the new living room. I'd even started dating someone, Allison. Met her through a friend. She was a nurse, funny as hell, had her life together. On our 3rd date, I told her everything. About my family, the restraining orders, all of it. She didn't run. Didn't flinch. Just said, good for you for setting boundaries. Everything was finally stable. Calm, normal. Then, one Saturday in May, Aunt Pamela called. Mom was in the hospital. She'd collapsed, stress-related. High blood pressure, anxiety. She was okay, but they were keeping her overnight. Then Pamela dropped the real bomb. They were basically homeless now, my parents and Dylan. They'd been staying with Pamela for a while, but she'd had to ask them to leave because Dylan kept causing problems. They'd been bouncing between their car and cheap motels for weeks. Pamela said Mom was asking about me, that she had something she wanted to tell me. I reminded her there was a restraining order in place. She knew, but she said Mom looked awful, had lost probably 30 pounds. Part of me wanted to run to that hospital. The other part, the rational part, knew better. I told Pamela I was sorry she was going through this, but I couldn't help. Mom had to figure this out herself. 2 weeks later, my dad sent a letter to my old address. My landlord forwarded it to me. It was 2 pages handwritten. He wrote as my father, not as a manipulator. He said Mom wasn't doing well. The stress had taken a toll. Dylan was finally realizing his schemes weren't going to work. He'd started applying for real jobs. Dad admitted they were wrong. That they'd taken advantage of me. That they'd treated me like an ATM instead of a son or a brother. And when I finally stood up for myself, they lashed out instead of listening. It sounded sincere. Hit all the right notes, and I didn't believe a single word of it. I took a photo of the letter and texted it to Peter, asking if this violated the restraining order. He said, technically, yes. If you want to pursue contempt charges, you could. Your call, I told him. Not yet. Just document it. 2 days later, I got an email to an old address I barely checked anymore from Dylan. Subject line, please read. He said he knew I didn't want to hear from him, and he didn't blame me. He called himself a shitty brother. More than shitty, a complete leech. A user. He admitted he took everything I gave and never even said thank you. Said the crypto thing was stupid. Said all of his ideas were stupid. He'd been chasing easy money instead of doing actual work. Well, at least he was right about that. He said he was working now, at Pizza Hut. Not much, but he was saving up for his own place. Then he said he was sorry. That he just wanted me to know he got it now. I stared at that email for a long minute. Then I forwarded it to Peter. He said it was another violation but not threatening. My call whether to pursue it. I thought about it for a while. Then I typed out a reply to Dylan. I told him I appreciated the email and hoped he was being sincere. But I couldn't have a relationship with him or the family right now. Maybe not ever. What happened had damaged me in ways I was still processing. I was glad he was working and trying, but that didn't erase 8 years of lies and manipulation. I needed them to stop contacting me. This was the last time I would respond. He replied 2 minutes later. Said he understood. Said he was sorry. And that was the last I heard from him. Good. I blocked his email. That night, Allison and I were having dinner at my place. I told her about the letter and the email. She asked if I thought they were really sorry. I told her, being sorry doesn't give me back 8 years. Being sorry doesn't rebuild trust. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand, and said, "You don't owe them forgiveness." She was right. We finished dinner, watched a movie, and went to bed. And I actually slept fine. 6 months after the restraining orders, my life was completely unrecognizable. I'd saved $47,000, almost halfway to a down payment on an actual house. I'd gotten another promotion at work, from senior security analyst to team lead, $135,000 salary, plus bonuses. Allison and I had moved in together. Her lease was up, and it just made sense. We worked. Alan and I still grabbed drinks every Friday. Over time, he'd become the brother Dylan never was. I was happy, like actually happy. Life finally made sense again. Then in August, Aunt Pamela called. Right away, she said she wasn't calling on their behalf, which already told me everything I needed to know. She said my parents had been evicted from the cheap motel they'd been staying at and were now living in a shelter. Mom's health had taken a turn for the worse, and Dad had some minor health scare a month back. Dylan apparently had a steady job now, but a Pizza Hut paycheck wasn't enough to take care of them. Pamela wasn't asking me for money. She said Mom had just asked her to pass along a message. Mom said she understood if I never wanted to see her again, but she wanted me to know she was sorry, that she'd been wrong. I asked Pamela, "What do you want me to say? That I forgive her? That I'll swoop in and save them again?" "Because I won't," Pamela sighed. "I know. I wasn't going to ask you to." I told her flat out. "They're in this situation because of choices they made, not me." She said quietly, "You're right. I can't argue with that." "By the way, are you doing okay?" "I'm doing great," I said. "I'm happy for you, sweetie." And that was it, or so I thought. The message was clear. But no, it wasn't the end. In September, another letter showed up, forwarded from my old address. Same violation of the restraining order, same documentation process. But I opened it anyway. It was from Mom, written from a women's shelter. Dad was in a men's shelter across town, and Dylan was apparently sleeping in his car between shifts. She said she was wrong, not just about the money, but about everything. She wrote that she'd raised me to be reliable and responsible, and then turned those qualities against me. That she'd made me feel like my worth was tied to what I could provide. That she'd taught me love was conditional, based on my usefulness. She admitted she hadn't seen me as a person with my own needs and dreams, just as a solution to their problems. And when I stopped being that solution, she lashed out like I'd betrayed her. But I hadn't betrayed anyone. I'd finally stood up for myself. She said she was so sorry. She didn't expect forgiveness, didn't even think she deserved it. She just needed me to know she saw it now. That I deserved better. Deserved parents who celebrated my success instead of bleeding it dry. Deserved a brother who supported me instead of using me. For once, she was right. I read that letter 3 times. Then I put it in the folder with all the others, documentation of their continued violations. A month later, I got another notice in the mail. My parents had filed for bankruptcy, and right there, listed among their debts, was $150,000 owed to Marco Webb for loans. They were still at it. Still trying to twist the truth, I was right. These people would never change. I called Peter immediately. He said, "This is serious. They're committing bankruptcy fraud by listing a fake debt. We'll need to file an adversary proceeding to contest it. We did, within the deadline. We presented 8 years of records proving every dollar I'd given them was a gift they'd asked for. The bankruptcy trustee reviewed everything and issued a ruling in early November. The claimed debt was disallowed, completely thrown out. The trustee's report even noted that the debtors appear to have misrepresented the nature of these transactions and referred the matter to the U.S. Attorney's Office for Potential Fraud Investigation. By mid-November, I got a letter from the trustee's office. The case had officially been referred to federal prosecutors. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Assistant U.S. Attorney Rachel. She was handling the case. She said they'd reviewed my evidence and it was very thorough. They were considering moving forward with charges and asked if I'd be willing to testify. I thought about it. My mother, my father, standing in a courtroom facing federal charges because they couldn't stop exploiting me. I said, "Yes, I'll testify." The charges were filed in late December. Aunt Pamela called soon after. She'd heard the news and said Mom was wrecked. Good. She did this to herself. A trial date got set for March, but by early February, their public defender reached out to Peter. They wanted to plead guilty. Part of the plea process involved victim impact statements. Peter asked if I wanted to write one. I said yes, it was 3 pages long. I didn't hold back. I wrote about the $342,000 I'd given them, the opportunities I'd lost, the damage to my mental health, the therapy I'd needed, the fear I felt when they broke into my home, the humiliation of them calling my workplace, the betrayal of being sued by the same people I'd sacrificed everything for, and finally, the absolute audacity of them committing bankruptcy fraud by trying to claim I owed them money. I ended it with this. I don't want them to go to prison, but I want them to understand that you can't abuse someone for years and expect no repercussions. I want them to understand that I was a person, not an ATM. The sentencing hearing was in late February. I didn't go. Didn't want to see them. Peter went instead, then called me afterward. They both pled guilty to 1 count of bankruptcy fraud each, he said. Got 3 years probation, ordered to pay restitution of $6,200, 200 hours of community service each, and the restraining orders have been extended another 5 years. Apparently, the judge even read my victim impact statement out loud in court. Peter said Mom was crying through most of it. The prosecutor had recommended probation instead of jail time because of their age, lack of prior record, and their current circumstances. But the judge made it very clear that this was serious, and that any violation of probation would land them in jail. Peter said, "It's over, Marco. Legally, finally done. They can't touch you for years." That night, Allison came home and found me just sitting there, staring at nothing. "Marco, are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "It's over." They pled guilty. Got probation, restitution, extended restraining order. "I'm finally free," she smiled softly. "Then we should celebrate that," and we did. I took her out for dinner. We ate, drank, laughed. For the first time in years, I felt light, free. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up and keeps even crazier stories coming your way.